Hi, I'm Harford County Executive Bob Castley, and you're listening to the Maryland Association of Counties Conduit Street Podcast, featuring in-depth interviews and discussions with state and county leaders on the issues that affect us all.
Hello and welcome to the Conduit Street Podcast. I'm your host, Shantelle Malcolm-Lym, welcoming you back to our Ask Me Anything episode, part 2, with Kevin Kinnally and Michael Sanderson. Without further ado, let's dive back in.
All right. So this is another question that we have here. So a few years ago, my county seemed eager to offer tax breaks for businesses, but now they don't have the tax money to support services that we need. So they go on from there and they add other things. But then they say, so any advice for counties with offering tax breaks?
All right. So
I have my own thoughts, but I'll let Michael go.
And they didn't name names here.
Right. So this is a perpetual challenge that I think you face if you're trying to do economic development, and almost everybody feels like part of your mission should be to make your county or make your community attractive. You want it to be a good place to live, to work, to play, all those sorts of things.
You need the money
right?
to build the schools and to build the roads, right? So you need that investment. You need economic development. It makes sense.
Right. And so you want to be attractive as a place to come open up the next plant or the next factory, the next new business that's going to turn into something big and huge one day, and so forth.
Entrepreneurs,
a big startup, right? Exactly, right. So you make all these different investments, and one of the things that ends up being on the table sometimes is, well, if a tax break would be the difference between coming here to Allegheny County, Maryland, versus going to this place in West Virginia, then fine, we'll put money on the table. If the taxes would have been a problem, we'll offer you, we'll find one of these tools that we have in the toolbox to give you a tax break. The difficulty in doing that is if you give an incentive, then you've frustrated what might have been the resources that could have gone for things that make the community the place everybody wants to be, right?
Yeah.
You wanted to build that park, and when the new company comes in and they have their parking lot and all their employees and stuff, now you have a traffic problem and you need to widen the road and you need to put up the infrastructure and have a turn lane and all that sort of stuff. And the money for that might have been what the taxes would have paid for had the new company been paying the taxes.
Yeah.
And then another wrinkle, all right, so I do this all the time, but this could be a whole episode on its own, but another wrinkle on this is property values are one of the big drivers of how much help you get from the state.
Okay.
So in the event that you bring in a big company and you land them and you give them a tax break and say, you don't have to pay property taxes, we'll give you a 5-year abatement of your property taxes or something like that.
Yeah.
The state still sees that property is on the books and says, oh, that's a wealthy jurisdiction, so they don't need as much help for their school funding as other jurisdictions do because they have all that property value. So if that property value is off limits for tax purposes for one reason or another, then you can end up painting yourself into a tricky corner with economic development.
It's a double whammy.
Right. So I think the smart thing to do is think of all that stuff up front. Yeah. If you've decided to do a tax break of some sort as a way to lure the business in, I mean, the smartest way to do that is to give the company that needs the tax break, but not the one that doesn't. That's that's more art than science.
Yeah.
But then the second thing is don't forget about the ripple effect. There's going to be something else that affects 2 or 3 years later. Now that property's on the books and now your school funding goes down by $1.5 million. You built that in, right? You put that in your model?
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer is, we didn't realize that.
Obviously that's the best advice. And also to have community input and to explain to people exactly what you're trying to bring in. And maybe if you're going to give a tax break, what may be off the table in terms of the benefit that you're promising to people, right? I think that obviously this is a push and pull again. This is a necessary evil, right? You need to attract economic development. Unfortunately, it's the race to the bottom in a lot of times, right? Because other states have already put something on the table. And if a company comes in and they say, yeah, well, West Virginia is going to give us this and Maryland's going to give me this, and I got 200 jobs, right? And that's really important to you.
Right.
Then you kind of get in this bidding war, and it is a race to the bottom. I really don't like the companies and businesses that operate in that way, where they literally they hold states hostage, against one another and try to get the best. And I understand from a business perspective, that's fine. But there's a lot that comes with it. And I think when you're talking about, I think Michael put it perfectly. If you're trying to bring benefits back to your community, whether that be jobs or infrastructure, money to pay for all these things, if you're going to give it away, what's the point? It's going to do more harm than bad. But again, this is why the local governments should make their own decisions, because the state could not look down on every single county and decide, okay, in this county, this is the best fit. The only people that know that are the people running the county. So it should be a conversation locally. There should be guardrails, and you should have community input and make sure that everyone understands what they're getting before anybody signs a paper, in my opinion.
Okay.
I like that.
I think you guys did a very good job on that question. Just want to say. All right. So simple question. What policy area interests you both personally? I know it's property taxes for Michael.
I like tax policy generally.
So is it tax for both of you?
Yeah, I do. I love it.
Gosh.
I love a lot of international relations too, like outside of the state and not outside of this country. A lot of that stuff intrigues me. I'm into a lot of the tech stuff for sure. I keep up with that regularly.
Yes.
I think taxes and tech. I mean, we like alliteration too.
Taxes
so
and tech
for me works pretty well.
I like that.
Pretty good.
Michael likes all. I honestly, I think I like all the things. If I could do all of it, like I can find a way to get into something. So once I do, like I'm all the way in. So I don't know. I think tax.
That is you for sure.
That is me. Like it's just how I operate. And then I just get on. It's too much. And then you get on Reddit, and then things just go way downhill from there. Rabbit holes everywhere.
So another question that we have here is, so MACo's board is made up of elected officials. Can you explain how that works with the turnover that inevitably comes with election cycles?
Elections are terrible, right? They really are. Like, good people lose, bad people
We
win.
just wanted to make it a holiday.
Right, yeah. Well, election day, like the concept of elections are
It's
great.
fun.
I mean, you get to know these people, right? Like before Michael answers this question, like you get to know these people, especially if they're on the MACo board. And I mean, when you go into it, you know that you could lose. And first of all, I don't know how anybody is an elected official anymore with like social media and all the terrible things that get said, not only
really
about
hard.
them, but about their families. I mean, it's
really hard.
Right.
But I think first of all, like my first take on this is these are people that you get to know really, really well, and you feel their pain. Like they take it really seriously and personally. And so when you lose, it's really hard, and you don't know what to say. These are your friends in a lot of circumstances. You know them for a long time. They have families. They're normal people. They're real people. Elections suck. Election outcomes suck a lot of the time, and that's just part of the business.
Yeah, and like every 4-year election in the gubernatorial election years in Maryland, our Constitution is written so that almost all of the county officials are on the same 4-year cycle as the whole Maryland Senate, the whole Maryland House of Delegates, and all the state elected officials statewide, the Attorney General and the Comptroller and Governor. So in addition to just the voters having their say and voting some people out, and then also a layer of people who are term limited by counties adopting term limits either through charter or as a local law. So you put all that stuff together, and then some people just like, I've had enough. I did 8 years. I did 12 years. I quit.
And by the way, everybody says that. Most people don't actually quit after 8. This is my last time. No, it's not. It's not your last time.
But we run the numbers at the end of every 4-year election cycle, and it'll be like 45% of the MACo membership of the county elected officials will turn over with all those multiple effects. Some people running for something else. Some people just give it up. Some people are termed out or whatever. So you bundle all that together, and like we have to be kind of nimble. And the place I think we feel it the most is actually with MACo's legislative committee, where we're a little weird. We actually take up bill by bill and present, here's a bill, here's what it would mean for your local park and rec department, but you would have to do this, you'd have to do that. So
every week.
And so every county, comes to, it used to be we'd all sit in this room together and take votes. Now we do some of them in a Zoom room and that sort of stuff. But still, we go bill by bill through the legislative session and the legislative committee, and there's an ebb and flow in that body at the beginning of each 4-year term. It's like half the members are new and have never done this kind of stuff before. So we kind of have to do a lot of 101. By the way, the reason you care about this is that you actually fund the functions of your circuit court, believe it or not. Right. You don't run it. You're not the administrator, but you actually pay for all these things. So when they say the circuit court must do A, B, and C, that's going to cost the county money and you don't have it, that sort of thing. So we have to kind of do 101 level in the first year and work our way up. We feel it the most there, but you just have to adapt. New folks come on, But
show goes on, right?
Yeah, and
I think one of the best things, most effective things that we do at MACo is the newly elected officials orientation that we do at our winners conference.
Yes.
And that's after the 4-year cycle, and you have a lot of new people coming in, and we give them a big binder. We walk through everything and say, like, you're responsible for
The binder.
all of
then we
it.
open the fire hose.
That's right. And it's like, here you go.
Drink
And,
away, baby.
A lot of them are probably just like looking for the nearest exit.
Right.
But I think
Binder
that
stick, guys.
I talk to people. They find that to be really illuminating and enlightening, and I do too. Every time we go through it, it's just it's a really good service in my opinion that we provide. I think people should definitely go to it. But I agree with Michael. I mean, there's always going to be the ebbs and the flows. You're going to have people entering and exiting. And I think one of the biggest things and most effective things that we do too is when you walk into this building and you're coming in to vote on a bill, regardless of where you're from, red county, blue county, urban, rural, big, small, you take that hat off at the door and you put your county hat on, your giant county sombrero, right? That's how we should look at it. Because we're up here talking about things that affect all counties. Like, we understand that maybe your political philosophy doesn't align with this issue, but we're here to talk about issues that affect all counties and do the right thing for counties collectively. So please take off all of your various hats and put on the big county hat. And I think, like, it takes a little time sometimes at the beginning, but after 4 years, like at the end of it, everybody is, I mean, in my experience, they're all on board generally. Like, they may not believe that, they may not agree with what's going on, but they're not going to like make a big scene because they understand why.
Maybe we should lead with the physical county hats next time they show up.
think
We just
sombreros,
hand out,
Just give them
to
big
everybody.
Might be a thing.
you think those like ridiculous like stadium like foam like the super
Yes,
like,
like
4
the super
foot?
fingers. Yeah, for sure. That's exactly what I thought about, like a Doug Dimmadome kind of vibe.
Get some legit sponsorship on that thing.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just run it around. I like it. Yeah.
Shout out to Legit. We're coming to you. All right.
Okay.
So what's the most surprising thing either one of you has learned about Maryland politics during your time here at MACo?
I'm gonna
Surprising.
let that go to Michael.
That's
It's been a
tough.
long
You-
time. I mean, like,
It's been a long time.
we've talked about.
Do you
some
want to
of this
put a
stuff.
number on it, Michael? How long has it been?
Yeah, I'm close to hitting my 30 years with MACo. That's coming up soon.
Big deal.
I would say it's going to be similar to the like what don't people understand about the political process, like
Okay.
with leadership and structure and stuff like
So
that.
you're one of those people burning your policy books, all your politics
I
books
do
when
like
you.
that though. Really. You do have to burn. I mean, like, this goes into like experience counting
yeah.
over like school and a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn any of that. You have to come do it. And I feel like, and that's a tangent that I could go on. Like, real world experience should count for a lot.
Yes.
And like, this is a perfect example of that. You throw the textbook away.
I think my biggest surprise doing this kind of work was a gradual realization that personalities are still the majority of decision making. You can think it's about facts. You can think it's about numbers,
Yeah.
and you can think that like that's what matters. But
It does.
most decisions really get made based on gut instincts and vibes and that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mean that as a criticism, but like I had a freshly minted degree in public administration and I'm supposed to be a policy expert. Like, I started as a staff member in the General Assembly and I'm the one trying to help them read their bills and understand the technical kind of stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, working on the outside will be the same sort of thing. Yeah. I'll just show up and explain the problem with the bill and that'll take care of it. Right?
Yeah.
I'll just tell them,
Because of course.
Right, exactly. And that is almost all the time the wrong way to go about relating to decision makers. And it's a process for almost everybody who does this kind of work, but especially if you're a bean counter inclination like I kind of am, that was an education for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that I agree with all of that. And I also think, like, expanding on that, like, I can't tell you the number of bills I've seen die for reasons that no one would believe, right? Not because it was a bad policy, not because there weren't votes. I mean, sometimes it's like, hey, I'm the committee chair and the committee across the street, they're holding I'm going to hold their bill because I'm mad at them.
Whoa.
And this bill's going in the drawer and it's not coming out. And all of a sudden your bill's dead.
Yeah.
Right? It does come down to personalities. It comes down to relationships. And oftentimes, like, really weird things can happen that affect the bill. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's the most frustrating part.
And 3 years later, somebody's saying, well, why did Maryland reject that perfectly sensible idea? And the answer might very well be, well, there was kind of a personal spat between this committee chair and that committee chair. And for the last 10 days of session, a bunch of things got held up. And the plan was always to let everything out and get it passed. But then they just sort of ran out of time. And then the sponsor became a judge. And so she wasn't there to put in the bill the following year. And then no one ever got around to it. So we just never did the thing. It's not that anybody hated it. We all voted for it. It just didn't happen.
Right.
Because reason.
And if I can say like some perspective for people from outside of Maryland that we talk to a lot of people think that Maryland is like the most progressive state in the union. We're all Democrats in Maryland, and there are a lot of Democrats here, but I wouldn't say that they're progressive Democrats, right? We are more conservative Democrats in the state. I think there are a lot of different demographics that lend itself to that. But when you talk about Democrat, there are a lot of different Democrats on the scale in my mind.
Yeah,
so
I think that
a lot
makes
of people they put us on the scale of like, oh, you're like the Tacoma Park might be like what a lot of people think. Like Tacoma Park in Maryland, super liberal, super progressive, but that's not the whole state. But I think a lot of people outside of Maryland think that is the whole state. And so when they look at things like, wow, your cannabis vote, we thought that'd be like 95, 100%. Everyone would love that. Well, it turns out a lot of Democrats don't like that, and there are reasons for that, right? So it's not as cut and dry as you might think on some of these social issues, which I find is interesting for people to hear that don't live in the state.
Right. Just because we're one of those states that on 8:01 p.m. on election night, they're going to call Maryland in the blue column for the presidential race because we're not a swing state. No one pays attention to us. So most of America thinks they know you. You're the same thing as Massachusetts. Right. You're the same thing as Illinois. You're the same thing as Oregon.
Washington.
And Oregon, none of that is true, right? I mean, sure, I'm sure they all have their stories as well, right? So anyway, it's always more nuanced than would meet the eye.
Yeah.
Thanks,
and I
guys.
like that, right? I think people don't just vote straight party ticket, and that's evident in the state. People pay attention.
All right. What is one of your funniest moments that you haven't shared on the podcast working in this job? I think we've had a lot of funny moments together, guys.
I just don't know what we're allowed to say on the podcast.
Ooh,
so
keep it PG, guys.
All right. Well, I don't think I have anything too harsh. I will say, old timers like me remember the Budget and Tax Committee in the Senate from days gone by as being a committee where you really had to be ready to you were going to get run through the ringer, that you would get asked aggressive questions, especially if you were not supporting sort of the prevailing sentiment.
Yeah. They were lining up all the lights.
So the old B&T was a special experience. And just a couple of years ago, we lost Senator Barbara Hoffman, who was the chair of Budget and Tax for a number of years. And she and I had a good relationship. Like, we got along well personally, good enough that she felt like she had a lot of liberty, that when I was testifying for a long time, I was doing the policy work on fiscal and budget issues, and I was in Budget and Tax all the time. And that they'd poke at me, they'd prod at me, knowing that I could take it.
And now you look back and giggle.
I look back and I feel like I'm flattered that we had a good enough relationship to withstand that. But there were some back and forth. I remember one time I was talking about surprisingly enough, a tax policy issue. Wow. Shocking, right? Wow. But I was trying to lecture the committee on proper tax policy and why we didn't have it. We needed to fix it.
Lecture the committee.
I tried to use an analogy of what we have is a padlock, but it's on a screen door. Oh, wow. So that's not secure at all. There's a giant padlock, but the screen door can just be broken right down.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was like, like you've written all this tax policy, but everybody can avoid paying the taxes by just rustling some papers. And I said, so you want a real door? And one of the senators interrupted me. He says, you want a trap door? Wow. Yeah, I put up my hands. I was like, okay, I'm busted here.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can relate to the prodding. Like, when you're in a committee every day, you get to know these people, and they, more. If somebody walks in off the street, they're not going to get the same treatment that me or people who are in there every day. You're going to get it, and they push you as far as they think they can push you. I think sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's all fine. I think one of the funniest things, maybe we can put a picture of it. I'm looking at it right now as we record. There's this giant box up in our office, and
looks like something from Doctor Who.
Yeah, it does, and it actually is supposed to replicate a utility box that you would see on the side of the road. That's a cabinet that houses all the hardware that you need to make the street lights work or whatever. And so a few years ago, there was a big debate about small cells, and these are the things that hang up on the light poles, and they're supposed to amplify your cell phone signal, and everybody can get 5G. Well, in the bill, they talked about, well, at testimony, they'd say, oh, it's the size of a pizza box. Like, no big deal, you won't even see it.
Yeah.
But in the bill were the actual dimensions of this cabinet, right? The equipment cabinet. And they just kept talking about pizza boxes, and it frustrated us, I think, to no end. So we just built the box to the dimensions in the bill, and we wheeled that thing in.
Spoiler, it's not a pizza box.
No, it's giant, right? And we wheeled it in.
It's
and
a refrigerator.
It was like super effective because they looked at it, and then they looked at the proponents and said, you said a pizza box. Like, that's not a pizza box. But we had to, security was very like, what are you doing? What is this thing? Is it
I had to search it.
That was pretty good.
It was pretty good. And we wheeled it all the way up there. We wheeled it back down the street. We were taking pictures of it as we went up the street. It was pretty fun. I think just the looks that we got wheeling this thing in there were
I'm 5'3", and it's about my height.
Yeah, we should put a picture. It's still up here because we don't know what to do with it. Like, I don't want to throw it away.
Yeah, I'm not willing to throw it away. Not on
There's
my
a
watch.
story here.
It's a conversation starter for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, this is a question for you. On an episode a while back, Kevin said he was switching to Cheers as his email sign off. Are you still a Cheers guy, Kevin? How's that working out for
Yes
you?
and no. I think that it depends on the day. Sometimes
depends on the day.
Sometimes I'll go and delete it and then just change it to a thanks.
Doesn't feel like a Cheers moment.
It also depends on the person. But I do. I'm still. It's my auto signature right now. Is Cheers. So
You're a Cheers guy.
Yes.
All right. Yes, he is a Cheers guy. Whoever said that question.
Was that pre-COVID? I think it was. It sounds like a pre-COVID thing for me, but I don't remember. It's still my signature.
All right. This one is something that I know you guys like to talk about, and we even did an episode on it. Can you explain why highway user revenues are such a bit? Did you just say, oh my?
How long you
I
got?
could talk about this.
How long you got? Right? Yeah.
It's very relevant.
Not long, guys.
I'm assuming we don't have
Please.
much time.
All right. So why is highway user revenues such a big deal for counties? For the person that asked this question, I will make sure to link our previous podcast episode on highway user revenues for you. But yeah, give us the summary, guys.
I will say, sometimes we are guilty of using like the insider term that doesn't really explain things well. So highway user revenues is the term that the state of Maryland uses for money that comes in from basically the gas you pay on your motor fuel, or the tax you pay on your motor fuel, the tax you pay when you buy a vehicle, and then a couple other little sundry transportation revenues.
These are all state level taxes.
Right. So the state levels one tax, and everybody pays one state tax. And then historically, they share a piece of that back with the local governments who maintain most of the roads. So roads and bridges, last time we did the calculation, it was like 83% of the road miles are maintained by the counties and cities and towns across Maryland. So the state has the big highways, everything with a number, that's the State Highway Administration. But most of the roads are just, Elm Street and Main Street and that sort of stuff. And that's our stuff.
It's a little cheat though, too,
right?
by the way, for people to understand.
Everything with a number is theirs.
Yeah.
But like most of the roads that get you home are all maintained by your town or by your county. And we don't have any way to raise our own revenues for transportation. We're totally at the mercy of the state. So that's the weird situation. That's why it matters so much. And then when in 2009, we had the Great Recession, the state was turning its pockets inside out, had a giant budget problem, and they're looking for money everywhere they can get it, and said, sorry, we have to take most of the money for highway user revenues that's supposed to go to those cities and counties, and instead we need it for the general fund because we're broke.
But don't worry.
Yeah.
Right? You'll get it back.
So it's just a 1 year thing. And then the next year was still trouble. So they passed it again. And then it just got put in law as a permanent thing.
Yeah.
And it never came back. A bunch of things got cut in 2009 and came back. They're like, okay, we got through the worst of it. It's 2011 and we're on the back end of this recession. So let's get money back to those programs that we starved. But they never fixed highway user revenues. So as far as where we are toward full funding, like we're on our way back, but we're at like 28 or 30 cents on the dollar. And this is 2024. We're about to do the 26 budget. Yeah. And we're still at like maybe 30 cents on the dollar toward where we're supposed to have been. And we've got nowhere to go. Right. I mean, that's the thing is like, we don't have a plan B. There's no surcharge on your license where your county gets $10 when you register. We can't do a local gas tax. Plenty of states do that. We don't. So we got nowhere to go. People think the gas tax pays for all their transportation needs, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Their counties are spending property tax money to pave the roads, and that ain't right.
Yes. I mean, the state stole the money. We never got it back. We've made progress, even though last year there was a proposal to slash highway user revenue again.
Yeah.
The progress that we made to just wipe that out. So it's frustrating. I think also when you look down the line, the state is going to move away from gas, right? We're going to go to electric vehicles. And so how is the state going to fund its own road maintenance? And then also, how are the locals going to fund the vast majority of road maintenance in the state without a gas tax? Like, there's no plan right now for how to backfill that money. So that's concerning. But yeah, I think it's frustrating. What we own and maintain the vast majority of the roads. The state stole the money. It never came back. And again, we don't have a plan moving forward. So the state has that's another issue that I think will be, front and center for the next session, the Transportation Trust Fund and how we fund roads and bridges and transit and all these different things. There's a huge hole there. There's no real plan to fix it in the out years. And unless the state wants to raise revenue, it's going to continue to be a problem. So I think for us, it's an initiative for us. Maybe we'll talk about our initiatives in a minute, but getting that money back and not diverting property tax revenue, which we need for schools and public health and all the other things to fill the potholes.
Yeah.
Like, we should have revenue to fill the potholes from the gas tax, and that's how it was supposed to work. That's how it should work. The state stole the money. We never got it back. So we're going to keep trying to get it back.
Yep.
All right.
Here.
We're going to try to get it back. All right, cool. So our second to last question here. Yep. I was going to say, is it our penultimate?
That's it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lemony
We
Snicket.
like
Shout
it.
out to Lemony
There's
Snicket.
a lot of questions, by the way.
Series of unfortunate events. Yes, it's a lot of questions. Thank you, guys.
That's a nice random drop, though. Lemony Snicket getting love on the Conduit Street podcast.
I like that too.
Woo-hoo.
Me too.
All right, so Michael and Kevin, how does MACo provide representation, resources, and education to counties while balancing the unique and shared needs of officials and staff? So specifically, so specifically for elected officials who may serve only briefly and bring diverse motivations, and then for county staff who build their careers in public service and are directly involved in delivering counties. So this person is interested in understanding how we help to bridge perspectives with these two groups so that they can collaborate effectively and serve our residents.
I'll go back to the sombrero point earlier.
Sombreros.
And I'll also say that we focus on governance, right? We're not focused on your political ideology. We're not focused on getting Republicans elected or Democrats elected. We focus on governance. And there is a difference between the elected folks and the professionals who, typically work through different administrations, right? They're there for the long haul. They're doing the work. I think for us, it's like we stay away from the politics. We stay away from the really hot social issues, which don't really affect counties. And we focus on governance. And regardless of the person who's, doing the work or elected to do the work, it doesn't really matter for us. You put your big sombrero on, you take off your little hat, and we focus on how to govern and what's best. And that's what I would say, Michael.
Yeah.
This is kind of like core mission question,
Yes,
as an organization like ours. I would say, so one thing that I think our association does a little differently than our peers, like I just came back from a conference where the directors of all the different state associations, we get together every year in October and go through all this kind of stuff and talk about a lot of this kind of stuff. I'm an outlier. Maryland is an outlier in a lot of ways, in the ways that we try to engage deeply with the professionals in county government, as well as our elected officials. So nominally, like, the members of MACo are the county commissioners, council members, county executives, and so forth. But it would be dumb, in my view, it would be dumb for us to just focus on, you're here for 4 years, you're here for 8 years, you're the only person in the county we care about. So I think we're smarter to say, let's make sure there's content at our conferences, for instance.
Yes.
We want to work with our county engineers and have them help develop content that's about, okay, we got to talk about infrastructure maintenance, and we can present that at a level that's accessible for a broad audience. It's not going to be technical. We'll have our own little mini conference, and we can nerd out and bring all of our slide rules and do all the technical stuff.
Meetings,
right. And our separate stuff. But we'll put together content for the elected officials, for members of the General Assembly, and so forth. We'll have broad content, but it's in our areas. But we want the county engineer at the MACo conference, as well as the county commissioner. And most of my peers and most of the state associations that are our peers in other states are like, why on earth would you do that?
Right,
Doesn't that make your county commissioners feel less special? I'm like, our folks can handle it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like so we do plenty of things that are catered specifically to the elected official, and they get care and feeding and love and guidance and so from us. But I want to reach the county attorney and the health officer and the environmental health director and all the people who are actually on the ground.
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of those people are still going to be there in 9 years.
Yes.
Right. So I think Kevin's right. You focus on the mission. You focus on what counties have to do. Like if the thing we're doing in Annapolis and representing them is we have to make sure that recycling facility in Prince George's County can function efficiently in a market that makes sense. That message is the same. It doesn't matter who just got elected as the county executive or the council members. They need to provide that service.
Yeah.
They've got that facility. So don't mess it up for us.
Yeah.
So Annapolis, please, step off of our toes. Let us run this program because it's successful and effective. That's independent of blue, red, large, small, whatever. Like focus on what works and focus on the people that make it work. And then when the new people come in, they're going to benefit just the same way as the old people did.
And take it a step further, like Michael said, it's not like our elected officials can handle it. I also think that to give credit to our electeds, they want us to go talk to their county engineer or their HR person because they know that the people in their county have a ton of knowledge and they do it every single day. So I think there's a recognition. I don't do that every day, but I got the person you need to talk to because we have a unique situation here and you need to make sure that you understand how it works here.
Yeah.
Like that is invaluable to us. And again, I'm not in their seat every day. I don't know. I know that, I know generally what's going on, but unless you can talk to the people who do it every day from various counties across the state, again, urban, rural, big, little, red, blue, to understand like the dynamics, those people do it every day. We're not experts. And I think our electeds understand that too. And they want us to be talking to their professionals and they want to make sure that they're getting input. Like, trust me, they make sure that we're talking to their people. So I give them a ton of credit and it's crazy that other, states don't do it that way.
Yeah. I think they're missing an opportunity there. I think what we do is healthy and it serves our interest because we have connections, like even in a jurisdiction that has a clean sweep with their politicians.
Yeah.
That happens. All 5 county commissioners are gone. New people are all coming in.
Yeah.
Most of them wouldn't, they can't find Annapolis on a map, right? So that's fine. We have connections in that county with their senator, but also with their director of public works or with their health officer or whomever. So we're on the ground everywhere, and I think it's a smart way to do it.
And I think and also you mentioned the conferences, like the affiliates. We have a really robust
shout out to the
structure.
affiliates.
Yep.
Yes. And they write the content for our conferences, right? Not only are we're not telling them what they want to talk about, they're telling us what they want to talk about. We'll invite speakers and do the work and write up a nice, pretty paragraph of what it should say, but they're the ones telling us what they want to talk about. They're sponsoring the session. So it's for them, and we're making sure everything looks pretty and nice and it's all organized, but really they're the ones telling us what they want to talk about. And to me, that's the best way to do it. That's how you know you're going to get value. Like a lot of times if I'm looking at a conference, I'm like, I don't want to, there's nothing for me here. I don't see it. But for them, like they know there's something for them there.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like we get such good participation, and I think it works for everybody, and everybody benefits from that structure. I really like it.
Agreed. So do I. All right, guys. Last question. Are you ready? Did Michael just sigh?
Has it been 4 hours? It feels like 4 hours. Right?
No, it's more like 5, guys. It's more like 5. All right. So what are the top 4 or 5 biggest issues that you see for the 2025 session? Very easy, simple, contra. Let's go.
Right.
Sounds like initiatives, right? Like I think
Are we going to go with our initiatives?
Well, I mean,
you said 4 or 5.
so we've already touched on a couple of things.
Yes,
like
you have.
we just got into highway user revenues a few minutes ago.
You talked about
My
energy.
heart rate is up, so I know we're talking about highway.
So
users.
we're facing a specific timing issue with highway user revenues that the last time we got a deal that was for ramping up funds that go back to locals, it was on a clock and then it expires.
Okay.
So we're kind of in the window where we need to extend it. Otherwise we're going to fall off a cliff.
Okay.
So that's one of our priorities is we have a shortfall in transportation right now anyway. The state's saying we can't afford these projects and we're going to have to cut back on all sorts of stuff. There's going to be pressure on the local side anyway. Our argument is you shouldn't go backwards. We actually need to go forward. We need to have the next step on this local share, right? Yeah. Right. So I think that fits right in as one of our initiatives and something we'll put a bunch of shoulder into for the 25 session.
You did mention energy earlier too.
Yeah. So energy is going to be big for everybody, but Kevin got into like the siting and location for particularly solar. It needs a lot of space to put up a bunch of silicon so you can make a bunch of energy. It's not something you can do on a tiny little spot.
Right. Yeah.
And that becomes a land use issue, and it's like butting heads with agriculture and land preservation, and that's tricky. And some of that is our stuff. So we'll be engaged there, hopefully, to find like a pretty smart and balanced way to do this stuff.
Yeah, and I think local revenues, we talked about money and the budget. The budget's going to be a big deal again. The state doesn't have much money lying around. Like they flipped all the couch cushions over. There's nothing left. So
flip the mattress over.
Yeah, they've gone through all of that. And I think oftentimes, we worry about not necessarily that the state's going to cut a program, but that they'll just shift the cost onto the counties so that they don't have to cut anything, but hey, we'll just make the counties pay for that.
Yeah.
But one of the things I think we're interested in, and it is an initiative, is more flexibility with local revenue structures, right? We have a lot of things we need to pay for. We haven't even talked about the blueprint, but just it's a transformative idea and package, but it's so expensive. And after COVID, the costs have just gone up. Like everything else is more expensive. So I think that we need to kind of reevaluate where we are and to make sure that counties can actually raise money to pay for the things that the state makes us pay for, right? And at the same time, try to fill the potholes without any of the road money that we're supposed to have. Like something has to give. So not that everybody wants to run out and raise taxes, right? But maybe we need to rethink our revenue structures and be more progressive in some areas and maybe think about different ways to raise revenue with more input. To me, right now, there's only two ideas you can put on the table for your public to even consider, right? If I want to have a meeting and I want to raise real money as a county, I have property tax and I have the income tax, right? Yeah. That's it. We want to have the ability to put more ideas on the table so that the public can come in and talk about things and have a menu that works best for them. Not that every county is going to do all these things, but at least you have options and at least you can get that input and talk about things in that way so that it's not just property or income tax. Okay. We have different options. What works best for you, constituents, community? Right now, we only have two. We'd like to have a bigger menu for people to consider.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm intrigued. You mentioned we haven't talked about blueprint. We didn't get a question about. We didn't get 17 questions.
We didn't get any questions
about Kerwin and the blue. Do you think people are Kerwined out? Maybe is that should that be the takeaway?
They're all
Ask me anything, and they're like, no, it's enough with that stuff. Maybe it's done. Maybe nothing. Nobody has any questions or concerns.
No family questions. No blueprint questions.
It will come up during session. Yeah, it won't be a big deal. Yeah,
I mean that's one of the things that's. It's bound to happen. Like the state knows that the price tag for the blueprint is a giant problem in their own fiscal forecast a couple years down the road.
Yeah.
So what could you do to say we still want to get to those goals, but we need to responsibly process that the labor market is totally different than it was in 2017, 2018 when all this stuff got built.
Before COVID,
right?
That is the before time.
Right. And so there's so many things that have changed, the number of, 20 minutes on this, but the number of, but no, I was just saying the number of, look at pre-K.
Private providers,
this is so easy, right? Like one of the visions was we're going to do a pre-K program and make sure that 3 and 4 year olds, first for poor families and then for everybody, that there's a seat in public schools for pre-K for all these kids, full day pre-K.
Super important, good idea.
And the main way to do it was to get all sorts of people who are private daycare providers to staff up, get more education and more training and certification so they become full educators.
Yes.
And most of the private providers have said, no, thanks.
Right.
So what do you do? Where do you go? We don't have buildings to put, like Queen Anne's County does not have building space to take another 650 kids and put them all into pre-K. We just don't have a place to do them.
Yeah.
So the reality on the ground has not matched at all what all this scholarly research suggested. Back in 2017, somebody said, well, if you do this, it's all going to work. It's a field of dreams. You build it and they will come, right? Well, we built it and the providers didn't come. So how do you do pre-K?
Right. And look, we're not blaming anyone.
Right,
Like COVID
right,
happened
right.
and childcare, the number of providers went way down, the costs went up. And
Yes.
so good luck trying to find childcare right now. There aren't a lot of them that are willing to line up and go through all this red tape with the state, and they have to, all the certifications. They don't want to do it. And I understand that. It's not blaming anyone. And counties don't hate the blueprint. Like there's this conception from some people, perception that we just hate it. We hate the school. That's not true. Right. I can tell you there's so many good ideas. I have kids in public schools. There are great ideas in the blueprint. We just need to be pragmatic. We all need to figure out what's realistic at this point. And if you want to do all these things, that's great. But how are we going to pay for it? And you got to give us ways to pay for it. So I think it's just a conversation at this point. It's not that no one's blaming anyone. Nobody hates it. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, but we need to refine and we need to be realistic.
I
and
love
think
that. Throw the baby out with the
Let's just
bathwater.
be pragmatic. Yeah, let's be realistic.
And the other thing that people don't appreciate is we'll have a walking around paper with these initiatives as our top things, and we'll talk to people in January.
Yeah.
But we will spend 75% of our time as the MACo policy staff and our legislative committee. We'll spend most of our time responding to things that we have not seen yet and don't know anything about. So a bill's going to get introduced in late February, and we're going to look at it and say, what is this about? And then 2 weeks later, we're going to be at the table with a panel of people saying, we can't possibly do this. I understand what you want here.
Yeah.
Because we've done our research and we brought up all the AI bots to sort this out.
Yeah, we plugged it into ChatGPT and he said, no way.
Right. But that's literally most of our work in Annapolis is ideas that come from elsewhere and have some implementation or cost or consequence for county services or resources. And we come to the table to say, we need one change here, or we like this and can you expand it to that, or whatever. So that's actually where we spend most of our time. We'll grieve over these budget issues and we have our own initiatives and stuff, but we play defense and we field batting practice a lot.
Yes.
You can tell that Michael is a sport fan, people. There are a lot of sports references here.
If you're a listener of this podcast, I think
You will
know
know.
part of it.
You for sure know. Well, I guess we'll leave it here, folks.
I mean, I think that was a lot. I had fun.
I had fun too. And I want to say a special thank you to our listeners and our fans for sending us these questions. Thank you so much. Be sure to give this 5 stars. I will accept 4, but nothing less, because I know you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Conduit Street blog and make sure you're getting all of our emails, all of our articles that we put out weekly. We work very hard on them, and we love that you guys are supporting us. So, for Shantelle Malcolm-Lym, I'm signing off on behalf of Kevin Kinnally and Michael Sanderson. We will talk to you soon.